Hey friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. Today we're going to be making a fall shaker, so let's talk about the products we're going to be using. This is the Hootiful stamp set along with the matching dies. We're also going to be using the Rascal alphabeters along with their matching dies, and I just think the font on that is so super cute. I thought we were going to be using the Swirly Clouds die, but we're not actually going to be using that, so I'll set that off to the side. We're going to be using a couple of stencils. We're using the Fancy Foliage stencil. Very cool. And then we're also going to be using the Starfall stencil. We're going to be using these on a Slimline, but it's very easy to do. Even though Slimline is obviously bigger, we're still going to do it. And then we're also going to be using the Stitch Slimline Trio dies. So I went ahead and cut out my panel, and that was using some Blueberry Bliss cardstock, and I'm going to tape all that back together because I want to put some glimmer paste on the front of that with our Starfall stencil. So I'm going to tape this down to my glass mat, put my stencil on top, just kind of hold it there, and then we're going to be using some Nuvo glimmer paste in the color Golden Crystal. I just use a little bit of press and seal just to keep it so that it's nice and airtight when I close it up, and I haven't had any issues. This stuff will dry super fast, so I mean, you want to work fairly quickly. You don't want to be just taking too much of your sweet time with it. So I'm going to put that on the top, and then I'm just going to line up the stencil on the bottom, and we'll take what's left over on our palette knife and we'll just work that all the way down the panel. So that was super easy to do, and it looks pretty flawless in my opinion as far as, you know, using it on a Slimline. It was really easy to do. For our stamping, I went ahead and stamped this onto some alcohol marker friendly cardstock. And then I stamped that with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. And then I'm going to color all of my owls the same. So I'll just show you the coloring of the one. We're starting with some E08. And then we're going to come in with some E07. It's kind of funny that the E07 is the darker of these two colors, considering the number order. But sometimes those E's are a little bit funny like that. I'm not going to blend it out because that E07 is barely darker than the E08. And then for his beak, I brought in one color, but I'm going to end up covering that up because that wasn't the one I actually intended. And then for his belly and his face, we're using E23. And then I'm just going to let that dry because I'm not bringing in a darker color. So for his feet and beak, I end up using YR24. And then this is where I'll bring in the E23 again just to deepen that up. And it looks a little darker there, but it will lighten just a little bit. For the tree stump, we're going to be using E97, and then our darker color that we're just going to put over the top a little bit is some E29, and then we'll blend that again with the E97, and then use that E97 just on the top of that stump as well. I mean, this is very subtle, and it's a very simple color palette. I didn't use a lot of colors, but the neat thing about these owls is that you can absolutely color them just about any way that you want. I'm going to tack down their matching dies using a little bit of washi tape, and then you could run this through your brand new Crafty Essentials mini die cutting machine that Heffy Doodle now has. I'll have that linked down below, but definitely check it out. For our card panel, I used that stitch die, the biggest one in the stitched Slimline Trio, which measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches, so it will cover the whole front of a Slimline card. And then I'm just going to line up that stencil. That's the Fancy Foliage stencil. And this is what I'm talking about. Again, it's obviously going to be smaller than my Slimline, but you can work around that. And since this is supposed to be just on the background, I'm just taking some of that like yellow-orange color along with a blending tool and just working that around the edges. I'm not worried about the middle because the middle will be covered. But yeah, it almost looks like that was a perfect match too. Now we're going to pop out those center pieces and take off those purple, the purple tape on those. I'm going to line this up on my card panel, and we'll just glue those down. This is for me, because we're making this a shaker, the easiest way that I found to make sure that I don't forget to put that stuff down, because I've done that before where I'll forget entirely, and then I'll be like, oh goodness, how am I going to line that up on the background? So this is the easiest way, is to make sure that we do this part first before we assemble the shaker, and then everything matches up pretty perfectly just using that liquid glue, and then you can peel back your frame. Nice and easy. And then I'm going to use some acetate to put over the top. You could do this with some liquid glue, but I want this to be dried quickly, so I'm using some 1/4 inch score tape. and I'll put that all around the edges and peel off that release paper. And then I have some acetate there, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, the type that I use, because I use 2 pieces, if that makes, well, I'll show you. So I use my first piece, and my piece is bigger than my panel, which is fine by me because I'm going to run that, or take that over to my guillotine trimmer and then trim off the excess this way. That way it's a perfect fit. But I will cut another piece down to be about that same exact size. And this is what I use. I use some Apollo transparency film. Now the reason I use this is because it's inexpensive, but I also don't ever heat emboss on that. You couldn't do that. You would absolutely melt that stuff. So if you ever like to heat emboss on stuff, don't get this. Get something else. So the stuff I use to put this together is the stuff that we all typically use as far as your shaker, and I had to double it up. But Heffy Doodle now carries a couple different sizes of great for shaker card foam tape. It's 5mm, and they also have a 12mm one, so it would have been perfect for this. So I will have those linked down below, and then your back doesn't have to look as messy as mine. I'm taking a magic powder bag and just putting that all along the edges. And then I am going to take a Nouveau spoon and put in my little elements that I plan to use for my shaker. And just a little spoonful in each one is fine. Notice I did take off the release paper before I put any of those in there, because if you try to do it after the fact, it can sometimes jumble your stuff around. And then I'm going to put a few blue gems in each one of those as well. Then I'll take a second piece of acetate and I'll attach that down. And I love doing that because then it keeps everything nice and contained, and I don't have to try and guess to put my next layer on top of that and hope that I got it straight. All right, so that's all done. It shakes, it's great, and now I can attach that down to my card panel. So I'm going to trim off any of the excess foam tape I had sitting on the edges. And I don't think you'd have that problem if you were using the brand new stuff from Heffy Doodle, but next time. So I'm just going to take some liquid glue and put that around the edges, and then that'll give me a little bit of wiggle room, and then I can attach that down to the front of my panel, lining that up. And then now we're going to work on our sentiment. So I'm taking the F, the A, and the L from our Rascal Alphabetters stamp set, and I'll have to stamp out the L twice, but I'm just going to stamp those a couple times onto some more of that banana split cardstock. And then I'll have to do the L, of course, a second time. And then I'm going to line up the Rascal Alphabetters dies over the top of those. After I do a little bit of blending on the bottom, I want these to look almost ombre, so I'm using that same yellow-orange color that I used on my background. And then it'll make these letters pop just a little bit more. So now we'll pull out the matching dies and we'll tape those down, and then again run that through your Crafty Essentials mini die cutting machine, which is so stinking cute. Oh yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to go check it out. It's adorable. And then for the rest of my sentiment, I'm grabbing out the one that says wishing you a hootiful day, but I don't want day on the end of that. So I'm taking a scratch piece of white paper or some extra that I have, and I'm going to put this into my mini Misty. And obviously that whole sentiment doesn't fit across there, but again, I don't care. I don't want the word day. So I'll just line that up in there, and then we'll do a little crafty stamping. We'll take our Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and we'll only ink up the words wishing you a hootiful, because at the end I want mine to say wishing you a hootiful fall. And I think that these blue and the yellow, the blueberry bliss and the banana split, are kind of fun fall colors. And then with our little owls being almost orangey, just brings out some fun fall colors there. So I'll trim down my sentiment using my guillotine trimmer. And then once I've arranged things, I'll start actually gluing everything down. I'm going to need a little bit of that double foam tape on the side there, and then I will put some liquid glue on the rest of the sentiment and attach that down. And then we'll start attaching down our letters for fall using my reverse tweezers along with some liquid glue. And then we'll attach down the rest of our little pieces with that same liquid glue also. No need to add any more dimension, simply because there's already plenty of dimension with it being a shaker. Before I attach this to our card base, which I still need to make, I'm going to use some more of that banana split cardstock, and this was cut down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches and now being scored at 3.5 inches, so this will be a perfect little slimline. And then my slimline panel will fit on there perfectly, but I can't attach that yet because I still have all these extra cute little owls to attach on the inside. I'm not going to add another sentiment, just adding lots of cute little owls. And then now I can attach my card panel down to my card base using that same liquid glue. And that's going to finish off the card. We don't need any more embellishments. You could add more, but I figured this was plenty. And there it is. So let me shake it for you. Sounds good, huh? Who doesn't love a shaker? And now that it's a slimline shaker, yay! All right, so that does it for our card today. If you liked this video, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for all the love and support you guys leave. You guys are awesome, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.